what you have in the beginning, which slowly fades away. It's kind of nearly still there a bit, but it's like, was it all for nothing? So yeah, that is one of the real. So I think you'd have to be extremely resilient and really believe in what you're doing.
Trials, tribulations, mistakes, barriers, successes, and failures. Hear it here firsthand from those that have grown billion-dollar businesses to those that are just starting out. Winner of the Campaign Publishing Award for Best Business Podcast in the UK, Success in the Mind is the only place where you can get a sense of business reality in a world full of idealism. Everyone claims to be an entrepreneur, but can everyone live up to the title? What does it take to start a business, to get your product into a high street store, or grow a well-managed team? I'm Oliver Bruce, founder and entrepreneur myself. Join me as I interview business leaders and founders from across the globe, delving into what makes them tick, their differentiators and intrinsic motivators. This is Success is in the Mind. Success is in the Mind is proud to be sponsored by Coronation Wealth Management, a professional service providing tailored financial advice to business owners, entrepreneurs, managers and clients looking to grow and protect their wealth or reach their financial goals. The team at Coronation Wealth provides services including retirement, investment, protection, and business planning. To find out more, go to coronationwealth.co.uk. On today's show, I have plant-based energy drink founder Huib van Bockel. Huib has worked in the fashion, television, and consumer brand world for over 20 years, ultimately founding Tenzing in 2016. What does it take to bring a consumer brand to market, particularly one in such a competitive and diluted market? With the energy drink market expected to grow to over $80 billion by 2026 and the health food market on the rise, is Tenzing literally liquid gold? Ladies and gentlemen, Huib van Bockel.
Well, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
So, your background spans fashion, it spans television, energy drinks, quite a bit of entrepreneurialism, but you studied at Harvard Business School, you then went into London Business School, and now you run a natural energy drink business. Why so varied?
That's a difficult one. I didn't obviously start off by thinking I'm going to go varied. And to be honest, I just went. My main university was in Utrecht, in the city of Utrecht, where I studied law and economics. But my Harvard, I did one semester, whatever you call it. To be honest, I would say I'm interested in a lot of different things, and I think and I think it is a bit of a journey, right? Your whole working life to find out what you really truly love doing, and I think I got better in that. Every step I took.
Because going from television into starting your own fashion business, and correct me if I'm wrong, it was called Finkelbaum. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yes, Dr. Finkel.
Oh, Dr. Finkel, that's where it came from. But you won awards for the most creative startup. It seemed to be not short-lived, but it wasn't something that continued for the foreseeable, right? It was very much a fashion brand, and then you went into working for another business as well. I think it was RedBull at the time. But why did you decide to start that and then jump ship and go back into corporates? So
actually, if I really look at the genuine reason for starting that, I started my working life at Unilever. Always in marketing. I liked early on. At the end of my university, I thought, okay, marketing is the field I want to go in probably because I like the creative side, and I've always being very interested in psychology and philosophy a bit. So how can you kind of create a bit of a movement? I always thought that was quite cool. But then realizing at Unilever, although I absolutely loved it and I wouldn't have wanted to miss it because most of my friends are actually still from there, and it was a great learning school. I didn't realize at one point it's more managing than kind of actually being creative.
Because you were senior brand manager there, weren't you? So you were quite involved in the oversight.
Yeah, exactly. So I really enjoyed it, but I was kind of missing that whole creative and entrepreneurial side. And I also had to, that's where I actually met my wife, is that we did a project within Unilever where it was about, we were saying we're missing a bit of the entrepreneurial side, and we were missing chances in the market because we were looking inside out, right? You're looking from the current brands, you were looking to find innovation within them, but then you'd miss whole segments of the market. So we wanted to go outside in, and then there was a lot of everyone could come up with ideas in the whole company, and then there would be this process with you had to pitch to advertising guys and my project won. Which was really cool. And then I could launch it. I was allowed to launch that project. And I did that together with with the two of us.
It's much easier with someone else's money though, isn't it?
It's so much easier. It's very difficult. It's very different. But it is also, it did also make me realize how fun that was. And funny enough, I tried to then buy the project off them to do it myself.
What was the project? What was the actual?
It was called, it was funny enough, it was really interesting as well. If you talk about, what do you call that? I don't know, serendipity or looking into the future or, the power of attraction, because it was called the RedBull of snacks. And my wife went to work for snacks and I went to work for RedBull 3 years later.
Oh, wow. I mean, that is foresight.
Then I was actually allowed to start my own business next to my job at Unilever, because I just wanted to kind of, I just came up with this idea and I thought it was really funny. And actually, it would have been quite successful, I think, because, do you know Happy Socks, the brand? The business?
I do actually. Yeah, I do actually know Happy Socks.
Yeah, they're huge. I think they're the biggest, at least last time I spoke to someone at Facebook, they're one of the biggest advertisers on Facebook. So I think they're probably extremely successful. Mm-hmm. And that was our mission was as well. We like the sock back in the day, early 2000s, which is a very boring item. It was either, a white sock or one of those blue business socks.
Yeah.
And we said, let's make socks fun. And it was a bit like, the boxer shorts. When I was really young, you bought your boxer shirt at the supermarket, right? It was
I think socks, I love socks. Ironically, today is the day I'm not wearing any socks. But, often I do think that it's the only way that a guy can actually, I suppose, be fairly creative in terms of if they're wearing a suit is a suit.
Exactly.
How can they actually kind of, showcase more of a personality?
Exactly. So we had we wanted to do the two different socks and we just said, and we had a real funny concept, which that's why this bit strange name came from. It was also one of the first online, it was really early, right? So it was you had you didn't have a lot of online stores at the time. And we thought, we wanted to start, let's say we said we start a fashion brand and we started at the bottom with socks. Mm-hmm. And it was also something that you didn't have to, try on, so you could just, it was really easy to send per post. Yes. So that's how we looked at it. I looked at the business case, funny enough, not too long ago. And I thought it was really quite clever, funny enough. And then we said, so you went online and it was called Dr. Fingerbum and you would get prescribed a sock. So you do this psychological test, which was just a load of, fun and bullshit kind of stuff. But which was really clear. So you had to what do you see in this picture? One of those psychiatric things. And then you saw something. And then we said, okay, the sock that you need in your life is the ocean sock or something. We said, because that will help you, whatever. And then we sent you the sock in a really cool little packaging. I don't know if we've got it here.
But that's quite a good idea. It's kind of quite experiential to a certain extent. Oh, is that it?
Yeah. So we had Dr. Finkelbein by prescription only. It says, wear ones daily with clothes.
Clean well on 30 degrees.
Yeah, exactly. So it was really, I thought it was actually really fun. But then what I realized, then I moved to MTV. We started it there. And then funny enough, I got a job at RedBull. MTV was about 2.5 years. It was also a time, funny enough, where you couldn't outsource your sending of stuff. So you had to hit minimum threshold. So literally I'd come home and me and my wife would go, should we go to a movie? And we're like, oh no, we've got orders in, So
this was pre-Amazon time, wasn't it? So this was when you had to go to the post office and...
Yeah, we had to post them all ourselves. So, you had to hit that point. And to be honest, one of the big things, there's two big things I learned from that I took in my later venture, Tenzing. Yes. First of all, it's handy if you know the market a bit. So I didn't know anything about fashion, to be honest, but that didn't really matter. I didn't know anything about online selling as much. So I think the second point is more important. You have to really enjoy what you're doing. So what I noticed, I massively enjoyed as I'm talking about now, developing that brand and developing that, website and all that. We got we did a fashion show. It was a fashion show on the Amsterdam Fashion Week.
Right.
And it was a socks only fashion show and we had models wearing only socks. And then so that's what later I really brought into do stuff that you really enjoy and that you are kind of good at.
Yeah. Yeah. And looking back at when you were, growing up as a child, you were quite academic. You said that you went and studied law at university. You then went into corporate life. You then went into kind of more entrepreneurialism. Entrepreneurs by definition are more zany. They're less academic to a certain extent. Do you think that the academia experience that you had as a child helped you in terms of actually starting and scaling a business? Or do you think it was just life experience that you just sort of shunned off?
So I don't think anyone who knows me would describe me as academic. So, obviously that looks nice on my LinkedIn profile when I was still looking for jobs, and I probably haven't changed that since. My dad was very aware of, just to be honest, making a CV look great. And of course I did finish my university and I did do law and economics, but I mean, it was like a combination study as well. It was like, so in Holland, everyone does their masters, and I started off with law, but then I kind of changed that into economics and law. So it's not that I studied law and economics, right? But I think that's a really and I would nearly say kind of nearly dangerous, where it's train of thought or belief in the entrepreneurial world. Don't go to, I mean, you've got these like outliers, like, Zuckerberg, wasn't he going to Harvard as well?
Yeah, he did.
He was like super smart, bumped into this idea, and he was really good at like programming. And then he, stopped university. So, I mean, these are just outlier things, and they get a lot of press. And I think then there's a lot of these spokesperson, I know Steve Bartlett, who I'm a big fan of, but I don't agree with that point of just don't go to uni and start your own business, because, he's just a very special man. And I think, most of us, it would be probably, let's say just on average, would you get a better job if you go to uni? And that's what, we were talking about it a bit before, like what's that average age to start a business? People don't realize this because of all the talk that's around like young entrepreneurs, and they get all the press, but the average age is apparently 42. Again, Harvard research. So I think that shows, I mean, and of those people that are 42, I don't know the research, but I would bet a lot of people have gone to uni. I think it's a really, I mean, at the end of the day, don't get me wrong. If you bump into a great idea and you want to make it happen, stop uni. Like I don't think I learned a lot. It's like I'm not using my law knowledge to start a business, right?
But the economic side of it, I'm sure, has come in handy.
I'm sure.
No. I'll take that as a no.
No, I don't think. What you learn, I think I think at university is you learn to kind of discipline of finishing something that I think on average people find not that interesting. I actually really enjoyed also applying for jobs at the end of it. I thought that was quite fun.
It's an experience for sure, to put it bluntly. But when Finkelbaum kind of ended, and why did it end? Was it just simply because you didn't want to carry it on? You couldn't carry it on? You couldn't take it away from Unilever? What was the reason there?
From idea to launch took a while. And then, basically the idea I had when I was at Unilever, then I launched at MTV and I stopped at RedBull. That's the kind of, it was mainly a mix, but I think it was mixed around the things I said. Mm-hmm. We actually sold it, which mainly meant we sold our inventory, and we kept some shares, but the people afterwards, unfortunately, didn't succeed in making it big.
And starting a brand is not easy, but arguably when you're trying to come up with a name, that's also one of the main issues, I suppose, with launching any sort of business. But you decided to go to Everest and to name the brand, the business, after essentially Tenzing Norgay, the first person to summit Everest. I mean, what went through your head to go, I'm going to start a business, I need to think of a name, I think I'll go to Everest?
It's interesting, the name, right? Because names, I remember that. If I look at stressful periods, there was a couple in the couple of big ones. I'd say 3 big stressful periods, and then there's a lot of big stresses along the way. But one of them, the first one actually, was coming up with a name. So if I look at like the energy drink category, if you want to have a name, a trademark name, it's the same as every soft. And I always thought, okay, I'm going to start very small locally, but I want to kind of have the opportunity, if all goes well, to make it big. So I wanted to kind of trademark it in Europe and US. So and it's the same category as all drinks, all juices, and all beers. Now imagine that on a global level, all the names that have been taken in those 3 huge categories, right? So it was basically impossible. Every time I came up with a name, it was taken, So I had loads of different ones. And then actually I was traveling, and then somebody told me, I didn't go to Everest. So I went to Everest later. Mm-hmm. So I was actually in Asia. Okay. And he mentioned what they drink on Everest. So mainly like the Sherpas drink and when they go on their treks. And it's called a Sherpa tea, a strong tea with salt. So it's very strong and has salt and even some butter. And then I had this doctor who was helping with the recipe at the time, because obviously you're doing everything at the same time when you start off, like recipe, where to source everything, what's the name. And I immediately called him because, and I said, like, does this make sense? And he goes, it does actually make a lot of sense, because it's a triple hit of natural caffeine, vitamin C and electrolytes. And that then became the basis of our recipe. And then actually immediately after that, I thought of the name Tenzing because my dad was always a huge Sherpa Tenzing Norgay fan.
Right.
The first man on Mount Everest together with Edmund Hillary. And I thought, wow, that's just, and it was available. And it was like, I thought it was just, it was one of those nearly spiritual moments where I thought it all kind of came together. And I thought it was like, it's pronounceable. Zing means energy.
Yes.
He's also, I always thought, he's also not known anymore as much, especially the younger generation would not know him anymore. And I thought it would be quite cool because I thought he was always super inspirational. And I still think so, of course, of being someone who literally came from very limited means, came from nothing and just literally aimed to the top of the world. And then I spoke to the trademark, I had this trademark lawyer, I spoke to him. I said, look, do I need permission from the family? And he goes, because obviously, Tenzing Norgay passed away. He said, no, you don't, because Tenzing is actually a very, very common name. But I said, I want to get their permission, of course. Then I traveled out there, met them, climbed the first bit, just only to monastery actually with Jumling Tenzing, is one of his sons. And then later my whole family met their whole family, and it was just super cool. And we work really closely with them now. They're partners in the business, and so that's also just such a cool element of starting your own thing, is that you never know what's going to happen.
Yes.
And that it is an adventure in that sense, right? Because you've all got it in your own control, and it's very, and you can do these kind of things and bump into these things. I mean, no way when I started, because my idea was just really simple. When I started, I wanted to have something that was low calorie, plant-based, and sustainable. Those were like the three key elements that have always been there in the business. But there's no way and then I was trying to find a name around that. So there's no way I could have thought I would have bumped into this recipe or bumped into that, the family and the name. So that was all, super cool.
100%. And one of the hardest things, I suppose, for a product of your, sort is the taste testing, the design of the flavors and the actual recipe itself. And, how would you go about, if you're a startup back in the day, you've never been or never developed, I suppose, a consumable, a drink, something like that. How do you design the taste? What do you know is a good taste? How do you know that?
So what you do so the process was really kind of, simple in that sense, that I started off with talking with two people that I also got, friends of friends. And the doctor I worked with was found on LinkedIn, really cool. He's a good friend now. So I started and I spoke to professors. I got all these professors in things like how much caffeine should be in. Because the cool thing, if you start your own business in any field, right? Because and that's where the first opportunity for any entrepreneur comes in, is that when you're, let's say, disrupting in my case, the energy space or soft drink space, you're looking at two giants, right? You're looking at, three, Coke, Monster, Red Bull. And these have extremely strong brands, but they have products that were launched years ago, right? It allows you to start from scratch and just say, okay, what's the goal here? Is to give people an uplift, right? People are tired, they need some more focus. What do I put in there? And of course, my basic was then I wanted to, of course, be low calorie and plant-based. No one in their right mind would launch an energy drink now that is full of sugar and artificial ingredients.
No, they wouldn't. You're absolutely right.
So, and that's the interesting bit. So I had to start with the nutritional side, what are the ingredients? Because they, of course, define taste as well, right? So then I came up with these 6 ingredients that were meant to be in there. And then I started off with just put them together and see what it tastes like. That was my ideal scenario. It's just just keep it really basic. And then, so I really wanted it to taste like nothing, if that makes sense. I didn't want it to have a strawberry flavor or a banana flavor. I just wanted it kind of to taste like natural energy. So that was then kind of so use the current ingredients, stay as close to them as possible, but kind of, just having that was difficult. So then we add some natural flavorings, which basically means it's fruits. So with some fruits that we put in there, you'd get then, the taste profile you get now currently.
And how do you know when you've got there? How do you know you go, that's the taste?
You don't, it's very, very difficult. It was one of my biggest insecurities and still is on that original flavor. Because it is a very acquired nearly taste, right? It's really love it, hate it.
It's interesting though, because when I had it at Madfest, there was one there, and I had a drink, and I was like, "This is different. I'm not sure if I'm okay with this." However, You have a second one and you go, no, I'm okay, I'm fine with it. And it takes a few for you to get comfortable with.
True. And that was always the idea. But at the same time, it's super scary. Because people go, I don't really like it. But you look on Amazon on our reviews, and we've got nearly 1,000 reviews on our original now. Most people, so I would say there's a couple that go, I love it immediately.
Yeah.
Most I think are like yourself.
Yeah.
And then there's a couple that just hate it. But that's fine.
But people hate everything. I mean, you're never going to please everybody. Right?
No, and I think that's a good thing. Look at RedBull again. 100%. A lot of people don't like the flavor of that. So I think that was our first one, and then and it was really interesting because all the people, and I know it's really quite cool in London, is that there's a lot of these drink startups, of course, and you all know each other, and all of them started with actually 3 different flavors from the get-go, right? Yes. And I was really specific on making it 1. And I think that was a good shout, because what you get if you launch 1, you more easily get onto the shelf, because a retailer doesn't have to launch 2 or 3 flavors. And once it's there, it will sell hopefully slightly better, because otherwise in the beginning you'll just divide your there'll be cannibalization across the range, and retailers don't look at your brand sales, they look at a single SKU sales, so they'll compare that. And then, but sometimes it has been difficult, because then it's hard to get a second one next to that.
Yes.
So then after a while we did think, okay, let's launch another one. That was then the raspberry yuzu. That was our second one. And since then we've gone really quickly, actually, because now we launched the blackberry and acai, and we launched our pineapple and passion fruit.
Yes.
And you do see the importance of actually flavors, because the pineapple and passion fruit, I mean, our original sells the most cans, but it's just because it's got the widest distribution and been on the market the longest, and has a lot of loyal fans. Yes. But the pineapple passion fruit, if we just have them next to each other, so for instance in Whole Foods, all 4 are there. Yes. It's by far the best selling one.
Our sponsors, Coronation Wealth Management, provide a professional service providing tailored financial advice to business owners, entrepreneurs, managers, and clients looking to grow and protect their wealth or reach their financial goals. This is how Coronation Wealth helped a co-founder and director in the food and drink sector.
Being a new co-founder, Coronation Wealth are helping us to understand what we can do with our business and advising us on business financial planning. Personally, looking at mine and my husband's investments and retirement planning is also a stress reliever.
Coronation Wealth Management LLP is an appointed representative of and represents only St James's Place Wealth Management plc, which is authorised and regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority for the purpose of advising solely on the group's wealth management products and services, more details of which are set out on the group's website www.sjp.co.uk/products. You've nailed the brand. I mean, looking at it, it looks excellent. But having looked into, I suppose, the brand over the last couple of years, you change it quite regularly, don't you? Or you have done. You've never sort of fully settled on one brand. You do new runs every now and again. Are you happy with the brand now, or do you think that's going to keep changing?
Well, which one do you have there?
I've got the Natural Energy Plant-Based Original Recipe.
No, let's show me the can.
The blue one.
Yeah, no. So we've actually changed it again.
I only got these last week.
But now we're done.
Until next week.
So no, it's so interesting one, because I remember in the beginning when I started, I thought, okay, I want to meet every person I can that has started a business and just learn. And one of my, the biggest guy I met was Richard Reed from Innocent. So I knew someone who knew him, and I met him, and it was really, really cool. And I said to him as well, because I was just in my first kind of change of the look of the can. And I guess I'm just constantly tinkering, because the cool thing, the great thing, I think, if you work for other companies, let's say as a RedBull as an example, of course, you'd never touch the can design, right? That was just always there. And there's something really nice about that. So it's you can't touch that, but you can come up with a new event or whatever.
Yes.
And that's nearly the disadvantage of your own business, because you can change everything. It's especially for a mind like mine, who's I consider myself, I love creativity and coming up with making things better, tinkering. But, the danger is that you constantly keep doing that. And then I asked him, I said, what did you do? So this is a long time ago, and since then I made many changes. And he said we just kept changing it. We in the beginning the little like halo was like hardly visible. Then they realized like the halo was really important. That it was really top right hand corner, the logo. Then they made it right in the middle, made it really big. So they went through a lot of changes, and so we've done that now. But what also was a big one for us is that I started with a single SKU business. Which then also, and then moved to 2 and 3 and 4. And I think, once you have more different like flavors and different blends, a different design is needed.
Yeah, but the purple taste is my favorite. I mean, they went down well in the office. And just to put some context in place, you guys sent us 50, 60 drinks last week. And today we are on our final can. So,
exactly.
If that's market research, there you go. So
brilliant.
What's the final design then?
Yeah, so our original can, the very first one, was just simply blue.
Okay.
And we had a fade in there. So it was like from dark blue to light blue, but that's very difficult to get across, on these kind of, aluminium cans. So you can hardly see that there's a fade. But then you did already produce them, and you had a minimum around 150,000 that you do. And for our first year, we thought our business plan was to sell 1 million cans, and we sold like 100,000 of them or something.
Crikey. Does it go out of date though? Or
It didn't, lucky enough, because we, so it's because it's aluminium, and you can actually, and we do very shortly, pasteurization process to take on. But so I think, we could, usually we sell all our current cans because it is a natural product, and you'll feel it does change a bit over, let's say with all the other drinks. Yes. And also because it's very low in sugar, it's more subtle. I think with the the likes of the Cokes and the Red Bulls and the Pepsis, because it's so high in sugar, it tastes very the same.
Yes.
Because we're a natural product with lower sugar, so we do try and sell them all within a couple of months. So for me, that was always the big challenge. Like, how do you kind of uncouple that, but still say this stuff really works? And if I look at this design, it was just too much energy still.
That does scream, and I imagine that is probably because you just left Red Bull, but that does scream more Red Bull than the current brand you've got, if that makes sense.
Definitely. And that's something, of course, you're right. That's something, of course, funny enough, that you don't want.
Yes.
But like that then is somehow ingrained in your system.
Yes.
So we moved away from that, and now this is the final one. You'll see like much more pronounced mountains than the one you have there.
Oh, that is slightly different. Only slightly though.
It is. So it's been. If I look at the whole, it is like always been an evolution. It's never been like. I mean, the biggest one was when we went to that kind of design. Went from like total blue to, let's say, the 3 layers. And what I also thought was not that great about this one is that it didn't have like real key distinctive features. Like now we have the 3 layers and a raspberry yuzu.
That's my favorite. That is my favorite taste.
Yeah, exactly. It's really good. So then you get like, you get the 3 layers. So this is also way easier to make different flavors on, different kind of, blends. If you'd have then you'd have a fully pink can and a fully, which we didn't believe would be as strong. And
so you went from that shiny can when you first designed it, which was kind of a little bit more Red Bull orientated, I suppose, through to the new brand now, which is more matte, I suppose, with as you say, layers and a sort of a greater definition around what is essentially Everest on the can, just to explain it.
Yeah, exactly. We wanted a more. It's that and also I think if you look at the latest one, so this is for the raspberry use. It's definitely also more craft. It's more like mounds. It's more adventurous. And I think that's what we wanted to get across well. I think it's one of those things, I think one of the most difficult things in marketing in general and startup is like choosing, it's like, what do you want to bring across? So there's so many little messages you can get on. And I think we really focused on that last one now. And we said, the mountains are there just to feel, but like if you look at the back of the can, it's really about, that key message of plant-based, low calorie and sustainable. And now we just say very simple on the back, instead of having all these texts where it came from, we just say, nice, you've just discovered the new way to energize yourself, purely for plants, low calorie and sustainable.
No, it's brilliant. And in terms when you say we, is that a branding company and yourself? Is that internal? You're doing all the branding? Who's the person and the brains behind that?
So we always, the first one, I met a friend of a friend who made the logo. And then the later one was also old friends from MTV that then made the 3 layers.
Yes.
And then only the very, very last one, we worked with an actual packaging agency.
Really? And talk to me about getting into bed with these brands and these kind of retailers, I suppose, because that is that is impossible for so many people because the door just keeps getting closed on them. And I remember your anecdote that you told me or you told the guys at Madfest about when you were basically pestering Sainsbury's until they essentially entertained you with a meeting. And back in the day when you were at a bigger brand, it was easier, but Tenzing, nobody knew who they were.
So like I said, there was 3 really tough phases. One was, funny enough, literally the name. 2 was then that launch period where you're basically just kind of, getting shut down all the time. And also, and I guess it is a bit more difficult when you've just, I was head of marketing for RedBull UK and Europe. And if I wanted a meeting with the head of Sky Sports, I'd ask my assistant to get me one. And there wasn't like, oh, does he want to meet me? Right. It was just like, when?
Yeah, I can imagine the power. Yeah.
Yeah. And I did always know, you always know that it's not because of me, right? They don't want to meet me. They want to meet the head of marketing for RedBull, right? So that happens to be me. So I knew that was the case. But then when I left and you really feel that, and you just really no one wants to meet you anymore. And I was just devastated, because in the beginning, there's what you have in the beginning, which slowly fades away. It's kind of it's still there a bit, but it's like, was it all for nothing? What did I do? Like, people are not going to like this. People are not going to take this. Every shutdown you get, it's not only the pain of that specific shutdown, but it's also like you're questioning yourself. Like, God, is this the right thing? So yeah, that is one of the real. So I think you'd have to be extremely resilient and really believe in what you're doing.
And in terms of actually getting the funding then, how much has that changed the path of Tenzing? Because what is it this year, looking at 10 million revenues?
Yeah, exactly. Hopefully,
and that's grown pretty aggressively over the last 18 months or so. And does that coincide with the fund?
Partly, but we nearly tripled our business every year until Corona hit. And, in the beginning, that's, of course, kind of nearly nothing because you go from £1 to £2 to £3. Yeah, exactly. But then if you keep that up, it's like staying on the curve, right? I've really kind of taken it slow. People go like, that's so fast. But then again, it's not really, if you think about, we're going at this for nearly 6 years already, I actually had a friend who started like a fintech company, and he was like, he's 300 people and funding rounds. And he basically, is going to kind of pull back from the business because it's too stressful. And I think there's different businesses ask for different kind of funding and stuff. But I think I've always, when I started, I always wanted it to be a long game. I actually started this to think I want to do this forever, kind of. So I think there wasn't any kind of, exits planned and all that. And I think it really shows in a drinks industry, in an industry where you're dependent on retailers or other people to sell your stuff, there's no way you can really speed up the process dramatically with more funding. But then, so I think the key is to kind of slowly build that. And also from a marketing perspective, I think if say I would have got unlimited funds from the beginning and you would have gone national campaigning straight away, that's how the big businesses launch their drinks. And then people go, God, they're bombing their way into my living room kind of. And now we are increasing in marketing, but I think there's a lot of people that know it's still a small brand and that they were there from the beginning and they tried that strange looking first can and now they're still with us. And there was a guy, he was, from Bristol, and he was applying. And he just discovered Tenzing recently, was on the website and knew everything about it. And he just loved it so much. He was literally selling it to his friends constantly. And then one of his friends said, God, you should go work for them. You should do the same job you're doing now, but then get money. And then he applied and now he's like part of the team.
That's brand ambassador. That's brand loyalty, I suppose, in terms of.
Yeah. And so I think there will be those people. It's hard to know. And we get really cool, like sometimes, we had like a little issue with the carbonation process. We just changed also to get our carbon footprint down. We changed our production to the UK.
Well, you've just been B Corp certified, haven't you? And congratulations on that. And was that part of that methodology to become B Corp certified? You had to get your carbon footprint down to a certain extent. We're going through it ourselves anyway.
B Corp is really across the board, but yeah, it has, So they look at everything, right? How you treat your people.
It's not a quick process, is it?
No, it took us nearly from the moment we already contacted them like 4 years ago. But I think, when you're really small, it's very hard.
Well, we're just trying to go through that process ourselves, actually, B Corp certification. And we've got it planned in for 18, 24, 36 months. It's not going to happen overnight. But again, it goes back to that whole kind of practice what you preach to a certain extent. And being B Corp certified, I think, over the next 5-10 years is going to almost be critical for brands. I think there has to be an element of showing and certifying what you're doing is sustainable.
Exactly. And I think the cool thing about that as well is that because there is still a bit of, left some greenwashing going on. And I think it's important that the trust is there, because it would be good if people start competing on that. No, we are more, sustainable, which 100%. Would be great.
100%. So what does, I suppose, the next 3, 4, 5 years look like for Tenzing and for yourself personally as well?
I think so. In the UK, we're on that verge of I'd say, like a proper breakthrough now. And at the moment, we're really increasing our distribution in actually all retailers, and not only the amount of stores, but also the amount of SKUs. So I think it kind of shows there that first phase of risk of delistment is gone. And that's what I mean more with the kind of a breakthrough. I'm really feeling like at the moment, we work with a company called ProQuote AI, that tracks your brand. Really great platform. And on there, we're also doing extremely well. So it's really like it's a way so you compare it to the main market. And for instance, on things like brand momentum and aspiration, we significantly outperform RedBull. So that kind of shows that, we literally just believe that the future of energy is plant-based, low calorie and sustainable. I mean, who's not going to agree with that, right?
And if you were to start again then, Huib, okay, so if you're going into business and you've no experience at all, what's the one thing that you'd want to tell somebody?
Get experience. Don't start yet. Get some experience. So I think this theory I have around, so a lot of people go like, oh, I've got funded this gap in the markets, right? And that gap is, I'm going to take that. And I don't think that's probably the right approach. I think the right approach is to look at your own skill. What is it that I basically, as an entrepreneur, the main thing is that look at what you can do that nobody else can. And I think you just have patience, find what you're good at, and then see what you stumble upon within that field that you're really good at, so that would be my main advice.
Huib, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast. Thank you so much for sending in the cans of Tenzing. If people want to buy more cans, find you online, listen to you speak, how can they do that?
So the best place to get, we have a really cool on tenzingnaturalenergy.com. If you subscribe to Tenzing, that means you get 24 cans you can get them every month or every 2 months, and we will actually make you carbon neutral. So we are, like I said, carbon negative. So we take more greenhouse gas out of the atmosphere than we put in. But what we'll do then, so the average, we don't look at your exact carbon footprint because that would be too much work. We want to keep it simple, but we've took the average carbon footprint of the UK citizen, which is 8.6 tons. So we have a tool online where you can check if yours is higher or lower. So if yours is lower, we're offsetting more. You're also carbon negative because we will always offset the 8.6 tons per person. We do that with our offsetting partner Ecology. So that's really cool. We call it the Carbon Neutral Crew. So subscribe to Tenzing and you'll become part of our Tenzing Carbon Neutral Crew.
I love it. I'm going to check it out. Thanks ever so much for your time. Thanks for listening to this episode. For more information, check out the description where you can find exclusive video snippets on my YouTube channel, as well as contact details and links. If you've enjoyed this episode, please show your support as always by subscribing. If you or someone you know should be on the show, please email me via oliver@pinpoint-media.co.uk and I promise I'll get back to you. Remember, there's never a good time to start a business, but in business, you should always have a good time. Take care. Success in the Mind is proud to be sponsored by Coronation Wealth Management, a professional service providing tailored financial advice to business owners, entrepreneurs, managers, and clients looking to grow and protect their wealth or reach their financial goals. The team at Coronation Wealth provides services including retirement, investment, protection, and business planning. To find out more, go to coronationwealth.co.uk. This podcast is supported by our media partner, Blocks & PR, who represent some of the most powerful brands within the luxury, lifestyle and fashion sector. Go and check them out at blocksandpr.com.